Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel for another process video. Today I'm going to be working on my Project Life spread. Now this is going to be the companion spread that goes with my 12 by 12 layout that I just did recently using my Chatterbox kit that I created. Now I'm going to use the same papers that I did with the 12 by 12 layout, and that is the plaid and the blue floral that matches both the outfits that my kids are wearing. Right, so now with those two papers, I also wanted to incorporate some of the cardstock that I also purchased way back in the day when I purchased this collection. And I grabbed some of that blue paper since this is mostly going to be a blue layout. Now after I got done, I did use a die cut, and with that die cut, not die cut, I keep saying die cut. I'm making die cuts with my dies. That is one thing that I like to do when I have collections that don't have any embellishments, nor did I find any embellishments that matched as far as the color tones that are in that collection. And so basically what I decided to do was grab a Polaroid frame and also my stamps. Now I have this Lawn Fawn stamps that I have that also has the matching die to go with it, and I thought it would be cute to have a little hot air balloon. Now granted, this is going to be a school layout. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be school themed. Like the papers that I'm using do not represent school at all. It represents the clothes that my kids are wearing. My son was wearing two different types of plaid shorts. My daughter was wearing floral top and then a floral skirt. So I really wanted to incorporate that into this layout. So here I am just using my die, and I'm just going to cut the stamped image, and then I'm going to use my die and run it through my Big Shot. Now while I'm playing this over, I was looking back when I was done creating this spread, and I was trying to find the big floral piece of paper. I actually wanted to use that paper for another layout as well, but I noticed here while I'm doing my voiceover that I took that biggest sheet and used it to stamp my image, and what I should have done was grab my smaller scrap. So a little tip: if you are trying to stretch your stash and you have dies or stamped images that you want to do, try to look for the smaller scraps so that way you can use the bigger sheets for another project. All right, so moving on, I was looking at that blue cardstock and I realized that the blue cardstock really was just very plain, too simple for my liking. So I wanted to create some movement and create a border. And so I grabbed that alt new stamp set, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp some arrows going around. I felt the arrows brings more movement along with that hot air balloon. And that way it's going to show and actually have the arrows facing the picture right next to it, which is a different day than their first day of school. This was the more of the meet and greet, and that's something that I'm going to add into that frame as well. Now I could have done this where it probably would have actually been a lot cleaner. I have I think it's called the Perfect Stamp. It's like the Misty. They no longer offer it because, due to copyright, not copyright, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not infringement. Oh, I can't, help me out here. It's when, oh, I know it starts with a P too. It basically, what I'm trying to say is she had a patent, that's the word I was looking for, a patent on her Misty, and so anybody who was trying to recreate that same thing had to stop producing and selling theirs. So I still was fortunate enough to have the smaller one. So I basically should have grabbed that tool to stamp that image, and then it would have been less mess on my fingertips. That way nothing transfers onto any of the other products or cards that I'm making. All right, so now because Chatterbox is so thin, if you have any of it left or if you have some of it in your stash, you know what I'm talking about. It is really, really thin. I am going to glue down the Polaroid frame onto some white cardstock, and basically it's just going to add and give it a little bit more structure and make it a little bit more less flimsy when I go to work with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put all those on the actual 4x6 card. I really like the look of that, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you when using Chatterbox, I would suggest using a tape runner, and the reason why is I found that with my tacky glue, because it comes out in like a really thin line, you're going to feel that bump or see that bump of the impression of the glue because the paper is so thin. So that's why you'll see me use my ATG a lot behind actual Chatterbox. Now, because I put that Polaroid frame and glued it already down to some white cardstock, I knew that I was going to be safe and that you wouldn't see the actual glue bump along that edge. All right, so now that I'm done, I'm going to start creating the title, and I'm going to have a little bit of two titles because these are two separate days. I'm going to put the year on this hot air balloon, and while I'm putting the year on there, I'm going to get to the number 1, and I'm going to realize and I'm telling you guys, they only gave me 1. And I thought to myself, oh, always give us at least 1 or 2 of those 2 numbers, because I feel that I always tend to use the first 5 way more than I use 7, 8, or 9. So I go and thank goodness I bought 2 of these books, and I'm going to grab that other one because it was such a good match to the colors that are in that frame. So then once I get that done, I'm then going to do the title Meet and Greet, because like I said, this was the day that they meet their teachers. They got to see where their classrooms were. They got to meet other fellow students that were going to be in the classroom. And so it was just a day of fun, of just like I said, a meet and greet. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the title, and I'm going to use the smaller, I think they're like 3/4 of an inch letter size stickers. Now, if you haven't gotten these books through any of the scrapbooking stores, they are made by Simple Stories, and they are their color block collection. And I have to say, they come with almost 1,800 letter stickers, which seems like a lot. And I was raving about them, and I'm still raving about them. They are thin quality, but I will say though that I am noticing that they don't give you a whole lot of letters. With the E's, yes, I was able to get there's 3 E's to the sheet. I did make one of my F's into an E, even though I already have a second book. I tend to do that just to kind of make sure I'm using up all that I possibly can with my first book before I start moving on to the second one. All right, so now I get done doing with the meet and greet card. I'm now going to move over to the second one, and I'm just going to basically take some pre-printed labels from Studio Calico, and I'm going to go ahead and house that for my actual word phrase. And then I'm going to put a couple of them down, and I am going to go ahead and hear those down. Those ones that you see that are like a peachy pink, those are made by 7 Paper, which was like a sister brand to Studio Calico. Okay, so once I got that done, the 2 phrases that I ended up going with, one says hip hip hooray, what a day, and it really was exciting. My daughter was so excited to go to school where Big Brother went. This was her first year at a 2-year pre-K program, and it basically was just like an intro for kids. It starts off for the first half of the year as an hour-and-a-half long, and then, that way they kind of learn to learn how to be separated from their parents. And then, of course, as halfway the year goes by, they up it to 2 hours for the 2-year program. So she was just super excited to be with her brother and find out where her classroom, and she felt like a big girl. So that is what I thought would be fun to put that phrase. All right, so now I'm moving down to the next 4x6 picture of my 2 kids by the school. Now I do have the school taped off because of, just for privacy reasons. And I'm going to go ahead and add another label to that. Now I'm actually going to change that label later on, just because I'm going to end up using a pink label that was also pre-printed by Studio Calico. And the phrase that I decided to use was from Allie Edwards, and it says watching them grow, because I'm watching them grow. I'm watching them, take on their next milestone, in their childhood. All right, so next I'm going to add some enamel dots, and I found these cute ones by Allison Craft. It was a small white star. I'm going to go ahead and place one there, and then I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to use also a star there. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a gold one because I thought I might be bringing in some gold. So I'm going to go ahead and put that off to a side until I know exactly what it is that I want to add on that photo below. All right, so it looks like here I've actually stopped my camera and I decided to use the arrows instead. I really wanted to use those arrows. That way it was drawing your attention to watching them grow, and it's, you know, pointing to my son and my daughter. So I'm going to go ahead and put one there, and then I believe I'm also going to add one more. Yeah, I'm taking the smaller one and I'm going to use the larger one and place down both of those arrows. With anything, just like any enamel dots or paper, I always use my tacky glue. I want to make sure that in a year or two those things are not moving, and so that's why I constantly will reapply extra adhesive, just because in the past I've used the dotted tape runner that was by This and That. They no longer carry it, but I noticed, at least where I live and the climate of weather that I live in, the dots ended up drying out and all of my pages were coming apart. If you haven't watched my album share, it actually, I started noticing it, and as soon as I got done filming my album share, I had to re-glue all of the layouts that had been completed. All right, so next I kind of wanted to have just basically like you would in any project life, there are card fillers, and I tend to use a lot of my chipboard just because, you know, my chipboard seems to be neglected at times, and so that is one easy way for me to do like a little card filler, and I thought that was perfect for the little cat, and then a dress because she is wearing, you know, skirts and dresses at that time, and so it just kind of represents her and what her style of clothing was. All right, so now I decided to move on to that Today card. That Today card is from Elle Studio from years ago, and this is where I'm going to have my second title card, and that is going to represent the two photos below. And what I'm going to use, and you're not going to watch me do the whole thing, I'm actually going to put down, I think, the first word, and then I'm going to like kind of stop the camera, and then it will already be finished. So what it's going to say is today, first day, actually I should say today is the first day, but I put first day of 2-year pre-K, and I'm going to have an arrow pointing down. And so that way it's representing the photo below. And I'm actually going to make that change here after I get done doing this voiceover. All right, so once I get done putting down and making that a title card, I also have a journal card that you see right there. And that journal card is where I'm going to have just a real brief little journal of this day, like I said, of basically what I'm going to write, which you will see my close-up. It just says, "You were so excited to go to school with your brother. You did so well, no tears and all smiles at pickup for the hour and a half that you were there." And it very simple, very cut and dry. I mean, that is the memory that I have, because this is from, you know, 10 years ago, and so actually longer than that, 11 years ago, and no, 10, because she was 2. And she's 12 right now. So 10 years ago, and that is what I remember of that day, is that she did not have any tears. She was all smiles. I mean, she could not be more excited to leave her mom and go to school where Big Brother was going. All right, so like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put down that stamp. That stamp is actually the same stamp from the hot air balloon, and it basically is just, I think it's called the Sky's the Limit. That said, I do not know if Lawn Fawn offers it, but you could definitely check out the site to see. All right, so then I thought I would grab my gray pen, and I thought I was going to kind of create just a freehand, you know, wonky lines to frame those two papers that you see that are by Chatterbox. It's the pinstripes that house the 2 chipboard. And then I was about ready to do it, and I was like, wait a minute, you know what? Then not everything is going to be cohesive, and I really wanted everything to be cohesive. So I ended up grabbing my Lawn Fawn ink, and I'm just going to ink the edges in like a smoky gray, which is the same exact ink that I used for the arrows. Now you saw me flip that card over with the title card that says Meet and Greet. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to keep those arrows, because then I thought, well, wait a minute, does it even make sense? Is it you know, none of the rest of the cards are like that. But then I thought as I flipped it over that it would have been too busy if I started doing all arrows. So I kept it really simple and just made that the only one that has the arrows on it. And then I did also adhere the ink around the edge as well. All right, so now I'm placing that last enamel dot that is an arrow. As you can see, I did change out the label into the pink one, and now I'm going to create another label on the other side. Now I felt like I always tend to kind of put it in the lower corner, but when I did that, I was like, wait a minute, I don't want two, you know, spots where it has a label and it has a phrase sticker and it has enamel dots. So I'm going to actually do it on the opposite side, so that way it creates the visual triangle. That sticker that I decided to use is just going to say documented because I documented her first day. I'm also going to add another one of those star enamel dots. And even though the two photos have the star and the other one has the triangle, it still gives you the visual triangle with those enamel dots. They don't have to be the same shape. I do this quite often where I will sometimes switch it up a little bit just to add interest to the page. All right, everybody, so that is it. I do hope you enjoyed this. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And if you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you here. Stay tuned because there are going to be some close-ups. All right, everybody, have a great day. Bye.